All right, welcome everybody. Appreciate you taking the time out to go through AI ready in record time. We are SWBC and we're going to discuss how we modernize our data stack with dbt and Omni. I am Austin Aranda, the Director of Data Solutions for SWBC. Data Solutions is rather broad, but just to kind of hit the highlights, I lead three separate data teams: analytics engineering, data science, and data analytics. Helping our teams kind of drive the data strategy of helping everybody get to self-service and a more data-driven organization. This is my counterpart.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. As Austin said, thank you for joining us. I'm Gardyasz. I am the Analytics Engineering Manager. I have to look down at the slide because it's actually a new title for me. I was formerly, thank you. I do appreciate it. So I was the former data architect at SWBC, full transparency. I've only been back at SWBC for about 7 months, so I was a boomerang. I started out at SWBC in 2018, worked there for about 4 years, and then left to go work at AWS as a data engineer, and then came back once Austin clued me in on all the stuff that he was building out for our entire data strategy with new tool sets and modernize everything, and it got me really excited. So I decided to come back and see what he was doing and help build along. So first off, we'll go over our agenda. We're going to hit on our legacy migration accelerating using dbt, covering all of the lovely on-prem SQL Server environments that we had to weed through, which was a really fun time. Self-service enablement using dbt's Copilot and features like Omni's AI functionality. Then jump into foundation of trust. Rebuilding trust with data is a huge component of what we're trying to build out here, with so many different broad environments going back dozens of years throughout SWBC's history and what they've been doing. Building out that foundation of trust has definitely been a key component for us. And then our new functionality with SWBC Insights, so a secure self-service analytical platform that is powered by Omni. And then learning and next steps. We could probably do a whole other 30-minute session on learnings and next steps because we're still actively learning. And then we'll wrap it up with a Q&A. So who the heck is SWBC? I'm sure a lot of you, if not all of you, are probably asking yourselves that question. So we are a financial institution service company. We definitely service a lot of different financial institutions across a broad spectrum: mortgage companies, wealth management, credit unions, banks, and then we also offer a very new startup feature for our payment service company called Swivel that offers a payment platform for a large variety of customers. Our key mission is to be the most trusted business partner in the industry by listening to our customers' needs, analyzing their situations, and delivering customized solutions. So rather than just being a report-driven company, we want to actually get into the weeds of what our customers are needing and actually understand where we can take them with data. And then how data fuels our business: risk management, operational efficiency, and personalized service. Very personalized. We want to be on the very same wavelength of every individual one of our customers, understanding where they want to go. So why modernize, and why did we choose dbt? A lot of it relates back to our history. We have very inconsistent processes around all of our data environments. We have dozens of SQL Server on-prem environments. We have a ton of Excel gurus who think they know everything about all data across the company and use that data in all sorts of different ways that creates inconsistent metrics across the business. Again, degrading trust, which is something we're trying to get away from. And then that leads us to be kind of this ad hoc machine that just is nothing but intake mechanism for enhancements to reports, data files, Excel outputs, what have you. We want to flip that narrative and be more actually self-service for them to actually be able to explore more data on their own and be able to actually enable them to have that skill set to drive forward and be more analytical mindset, and we're their thought partner in that process. So speed to insights. Again, going back to our legacy data environment, I can't harp on this enough. Like, I don't know if any of you have ever worked with SQL Server on-prem environments for companies that have been around for dozens of years, but we have dozens, maybe even over 100 of SQL Server environments. And that was our biggest pain point, was actually being able to consolidate all of these data sets across multiple environments into one area and being able to replicate all the lineage of that into dbt, Snowflake, and in Omni. In inception replication, we also historically have had a bad problem of data was always an afterthought. When new applications, new initiatives were spun up, it was always the excitement around getting new features and capabilities, but we were always the last one to get the word of what that would actually be. So that would always lead us into what are we even looking at? What application is this? What do we expect from the data, the tables? How will it actually be structured? How does it all relate? By being able to be more thought-driven forward and having these conversations a lot quicker, because we can actually provide speed to insights a lot faster with dbt, we can minimize that gap in communication and be able to communicate with them faster and more efficiently on the data that we're pulling in and reduce replication through multiple environments. And then, again, just touching on the legacy scripts that we had to go through, I've been pulling my eyeballs out trying to go through all the SQL code that we've been migrating over the past few years. And yes, that is not a typo. That's 5 different BI tools. And while we were prepping through this conversation, we actually went through and started naming them. It's more than 5 if you actually include all the in-application reporting environments that are out there, right? Think Salesforce or just about any other new tool that you spin up. There's usually some sort of form or fashion of internal reporting on those tools. And getting our customers out of that to actually trust what we're producing for them once we actually start replicating that data and using it for broader foundations of data insights. So legacy migration, accelerating using dbt. Streamlining migration has definitely been the biggest help across the board with dbt. Its functionalities with Jinja. We have one of our analytical engineers here who just last week condensed, I think, a 60-line case statement into an 8-line Jinja script, which was time-saving enough and just reading through exactly what it was doing. And then being able to actually be more focused on complex work that can solve problems with those enhanced features and capabilities within dbt. I don't know about y'all, but the keynote today about the dbt compare and dbt fusion model was one of the things that I'm most excited about, to be able to actually have a click of a button feature that can actually do a comparison analysis of everything that you have changed and what it impacts. So that's, again, getting back into the world of Microsoft SQL Server. Those capabilities and functionalities were just never even in the thought process. And whenever you change something, it was always just run it and figure out what broke and then go fix it. So now we actually have a proactive way of seeing when we change something, we're not chasing down lineage of codes downstream for hours on end, trying to actually figure out what happened, what else do we need to update. And then I'll hand it off to my trusted colleague, Aranda, to speak about all the new and amazing tools that we're using on our steps forward for modernizing our data stack.
Yeah, so as Alex covered, our history has been very ad hoc, disjointed with basically a SQL master or Excel masters across the board. This obviously made it very difficult to even have a centralized effort because at the end of the day, we have to sell the business on why we're doing it. So 2 to 3 years ago, we started down this path of, okay, I started out with a very simple use case of, all right, guys, we got to get into the year 2000. We're going to try doing a machine learning effort to even show that, hey, there is value in data. Historically, it was just Excel workbooks, ad hoc SQL scripts, everything under the sun. Once we were providing a quick win to show, okay, here's the cool stuff that we can do, at that point, we were able to start getting more of a push towards, hey, we like the cool stuff. Okay, well, that's great. Well, cool stuff comes with vegetables that you don't want to eat. And those vegetables are setting a foundation. And so we ended up standing up our self-service analytics flow. Just for additional context, really setting that foundation is going to be around solving the real problem of, what is it that we're actually trying to solve for. And so centralized, governed, trustworthy data was what we were needing to solve for. And so centralizing everything as far as replication in Snowflake. So we have various, beyond the SQL servers, we have a lot of SaaS applications. We do have our AWS environment. We do have a very stringent security process in our scope. Typically being financial services, this is expected. So, I would say that we are so secure, we almost lock the keys inside the house. And so being able to have a proper data strategy to satisfy these efforts to align with our security team was the first foundational step. So really, before you even go down the path of trying to buy anything, you need to understand why you're buying these tools. We started with Snowflake, then we partnered with DBT doing the data modeling and testing, AI context, metadata documentation. These core functions are actually what help make Omni the most valuable asset in our tool suite today. Now, there are various BI tools. I'll kind of get into what Omni is here in a little bit if you want to go to the next slide. So what is Omni? Omni, to me personally, is beyond just BI. It's an analytics platform. It's meant to meet your users where they are, whether it's coding or doing their crazy Excels, being able to convert those into SQL natively from Excel functions, being able to code in SQL itself, maybe just using natural language queries to be able to satisfy whatever insights they need to get. Omni meets you where you're at. And so when we started out with our journey around BI, our EVP of product wanted to centralize all these millions of BI tools that we have. So I actually did go by meeting each one of the BI tools out there. And really what we were trying to find is a business partner. And that's what Omni truly was. Their white glove service, I cannot express without more gratitude, but they are a holistic version of what made this possible in our migration to Domo.
From Domo.
Migration from Domo into Omni. They were available at all hours. I mean, I'd come to the conference for Snowflake and I can just go ask them and they'd pull up their laptop and here, let me show you. Or a simple text message over the weekend. I wouldn't expect somebody to answer, but they do. But ultimately, being able to partner with them and stand up the right platform, this is something that we wanted to be able to provide to the business. It's, hey, we're not providing you a new reporting solution. We're providing you the enablement of self-service truly, where ultimately the data analysts and analytics engineers are working on the things that are important. Historically, our organization has been very reactive to things. Hey, I don't understand why this client's doing X. We want to get to a world where, they can answer that question themselves, but really the data analyst is there to tell them, hey, this is happening, we need to do something about it. And we can't get there without the right tools and governance. You can go to the next slide.
Yeah, and just to touch on that, they've definitely been our BI therapists throughout the entire process.
Yeah, that's true.
I virtually cried on their shoulders many times, so been a huge help.
So as we were going through this journey, this quote by Henry David Thoreau really stood out for the most part, coming from a very strong sales organization. But if you have built castles in the air, your work need not be lost. That is where they should be. Now put the foundation underneath them. So for us, we were always buying industry standard everything. We would have Salesforce, we have Power BI, Domo, Tableau, everything else under the sun. But no one would ever understand why these things would fall out of the sky. Well, we never took the time to actually set the foundation underneath. If you don't take the time to actually have a foundation on your house, it's going to fall, unfortunately. And so in part of this effort, we wanted to make sure that our relationship and our rollout with Omni was successful and it wasn't just another BI fail. And so that's where we spent a lot of time working on the foundation. So trust and insight and getting the foundation right. And this is really kind of the core of where we started. So not just the tools, but also alignment across the organization on what the strategy is for the teams. And so in our journey to AI and self-service, it all starts with this foundation. And so what we ended up figuring out was we can't necessarily be so stringent that everything is centralized completely with IT. And on the flip side, you can't let all these ad hoc ninjas just completely do whatever they want because then there's no centralized foundation at all. And so what we ended up doing was centralizing the pieces that need to be centralized, which is a lot of going to be around like Snowflake, the ingestion pieces with Fivetran, replication through Kafka, things like that. So all of our ingestion, the core foundational data modeling, facts and dimensions, and security and governance all live with our enterprise strategy. And then downstream, we essentially stood up more of this pod structure. If anyone has ever had the opportunity to kind of look at PH Data's Fusion team model, they do have some white paper out there that's very interesting, but this is kind of the foundation of where we got that from. And so having this decentralized alignment to ensure that business logic, definitions, our hybrid models, and the AI context all live with the data teams that are directly in line with the business. This is truly how you go fast, because at that point, IT can deal with a lot of the replication issues, the fires, the things that keep us up at night, but then the data teams are able to align with the business to be quickly and involved directly with everything that's going on. So that way there's trust in the KPIs, but there's also governance in what's accessible. And so what was the point of all this? So ultimately, at the end of the day, what we were trying to stand up is SWBC Insights. This was our road to self-service as a platform. And so in our partnership, we're ultimately trying to satisfy helping our clients and building competitive differentiation. Now, what does SWBC Insights actually do for our clients? This is providing access to reports and dashboards, receive up-to-date emails because they can do subscriptions themselves within our portal, unlocking AI directly from our SWBC portal, and then ultimately going back to what I was talking about with Omni, meeting our clients with their own skill set and where they're at. And so historically, we've always had to be curating reports. Everything's just kind of, hey, I needed this yesterday, and more of that like drive-through mentality. So there was a lot of change, not just from our organization, but even cultures within our team. There was a lot of mindset changing from getting out of this kind of, nothing against McDonald's, but McDonald's drive-through mentality of, hey, I come in, I want a number one. Just give me the number one, that's it. I want to be in and out in 5 minutes. That's great. Those type of things need to be self-serviced. But in reality, the data analysts are meant to kind of be more of that consultant to the business. They're actually aligned with them, understanding what's going on. It's the white glove service that you'd get in any of those restaurants in this hotel. If you go and sit down, they're not telling you, oh, okay, cool, you're gonna order a steak. Or I just want a steak and then that's it. They're educating you on what you want. They wanna know what drink you have. And so really changing that cultural mindset around this drive-through mentality was very important for us, because that's the only way that self-service is gonna be adopted, is showing them, hey, if you want the number one, great, it's available here on this dashboard. And you wanna go over. So this is actually a mock-up of our SWBC Insights environment. Omni natively embedded into our portal. As you can see, Omni is our, secret powerhouse behind our portal, but our clients don't know the difference. So this was very important to us in our partnership with any BI tool, is being able to actually white label our environment to be able to show our clients, hey, we have a really bad habit of trying to build everything from scratch. We don't need to. Let the experts do what they're good at, and Omni is good at what they do. So allowing them to manage the infrastructure behind the BI layer, and we're simply being able to embed that into our portal, is just the experience that we need for our clients. It's quick, it's fast, it's easy to use, and so ultimately our clients will be able to have the same benefit without having to wait years of us building the same platform internally. Lessons learned and next steps. So sometimes you need to go slow to go fast. This is very, very important in any data modernization journey. You're going to be bombarded by every vendor under the sun that can solve every one of your problems, but making sure that you're aligning the right tool for the right problem. Ultimately, this is our data stack. It doesn't necessarily have to be your secret sauce. Everybody partners with different vendors. That's fine. Really what we set out to accomplish and understand is, how do we make sure that our environment is successful? And so for us, this is our secret sauce. And so being able to set a strong governance takes thoughtful change management and championing. This was actually very, very early on something that we learned, especially being in financial services. We are very slow to change. And so, it's great to be, advocating the shiny new things. But ultimately, you have to make sure you have in place like a proper strategy, change management to say, okay, hey, this is coming with timelines so people can adjust. Again, going slow to go fast. Patience is key, and patience for yourself is actually going to be very important. Because once you get excited about doing all these things, you think everyone else is going to rapidly rally behind you, but that's always the hard part. It's really cool to you, but making sure that you can be patient enough with everybody else to say, okay, here's the proper strategy to get that done. This was very, very important to me, and I'm not sure how many of you out there actually have that problem. But just because it exists doesn't mean it needs to be migrated. So consolidating as many of your use cases into either analytics models or some separate reporting that maybe you can do more of a catch-all. We are very, very good about talking about tech debt, but we don't take a lot of time to talk about tech debt forgiveness. So one thing that we did learn for us is we had a vast suite of analytics in Domo. When it came to find out and we did a true audit understanding what was the usage and what needed to be migrated, it got consolidated to like 30 to 40%. And so a lot of the times we had these random ad hoc use cases that, yeah, I needed it yesterday, but it was just satisfying one question. And then at that point, we have replication on a report that no one's even using anymore. And so being able to actually making sure that you're utilizing your metadata on your interactions with your users is going to be very important, because that's where you can actually start managing expectations on what needs to be migrated and then allowing people the proper opportunity to say, hey, no, I need that. So what this means for our business, data democratization, I'm sorry.
It's a hard word, don't worry.
I just can't read, sorry. So really, the main focus here is just more of that one-for-all approach. I'm sure if any of you have been to any of the other Snowflake conferences or Coalesce, we talk about these data silos all the time. They are very real, and it's very easy to slip into because of lack of trust. And so we needed to solve the trust part so we could truly have this one-for-all approach. Because in my vision for our organization, I don't see there's not a reason that everybody's a data person. And so, you'll see Hex with the data person shirts. I would envision that everybody has a data person shirt, because there's no reason you're not utilizing data for your job. Expediting data product delivery. This is very important for us, because historically it would be a suite of tickets that'd be backlogged for 6 months, and we'll get around to it when we get around to it. Now it's, we can actually do sprint planning and get things accomplished. Data governance foundation, making sure that you're utilizing masking policies and tagging. DBT being able to natively push those things back into Snowflake to hand off those tagging is very nice, and it seems like with Fusion we're going to get more of that, which I'm enjoying. Role-based access consistency. So one thing for us that we ultimately had learned was when we started auditing our SQL Server environment, there was a lot of different users that probably shouldn't have had the access that was going to benefit them. Just because you have access, is this actually something that you could use? Because then they're just getting access to tables that, yeah, it's good for their job, but they don't know how to use them. So making sure that you're able to properly put the naming conventions, context within the data so people could truly use it. Data adoption expansion, kind of going back to non-data teams utilizing data, and then decision empowerment. So what's next? So ultimately what we're trying to do at that point, we're standing up SWBC Insights. Our next venture is going to be SWBC Intelligence, and this is standing up more of that ML AI ops platform to enable optimizing our operations for our clients utilizing ML and AI. And so currently today, everything is kind of managed by our operations team, which is very, very waning on them because we have a lot of clients. I mean, depending on what product, it ranges between like 300 to 900 clients. So being able to manage the operations across all those is very time consuming. But if we're able to utilize this new platform to be able to solve that problem, then that'll be a huge win for the organization. On the flip side, we're now starting to explore more of the AI capabilities within Omni, being able to white label Blobby to be our own internal, essentially, assistant. And so we're exploring those use cases, being able to enhance our metadata management within DBT for context that is natively ingested from DBT into Omni, These are the type of things that we're working on to be able to have that full AI self-service functionality.
And expanding that AI context, right? I mean, that's the key for all AI, right? Is context is key, and we have so many different groups that know what they know and nothing else. And that's where the whole AI context and pulling all of this together actually expands that and enables those capabilities.
But we do appreciate your time, and we're available for questions.
Any questions? No? Yes.
Oh, cloud, sorry. We didn't touch on that. Yes.
I'm sorry, can you speak up just a little bit?
Or do we have like a mic we can use?
How much developers uses cloud ID versus local ID like VS Code or PyCharm or whatever?
Yeah, so we actually started on cloud to begin with when we originally purchased DBT. Our team is actually in the process of integrating DBT Cloud to be able to utilize it in VS Code. There's a lot more work with our security environment, standing up different GitHub repos and things like that. So that's in progress. It's not that we don't want to do it. We just started with the cloud.
Follow-up question? Go ahead.
Yeah, one more question about CI and how do you control code quality of this models?
Code quality of DBT modules? That has been a very painstaking process, to be honest with you, because it's not something that's a greenfield solution, right? A big portion of our work in this consolidation effort has been migrating all of those scripts that we're pulling out of like the Domo engine itself into the DBT platform. So we basically were on a crunch timeline that should have been more over a year project that we kind of got pigeonholed into doing it in 3 months. So it was basically lift and shift as fast as possible, and now we're doing the cleanup work. So we've been trying to figure out the right mechanisms to put in place to actually do quality control around everything that's coming out of that lift and shift effort. Biggest functionality that I've seen to be the most benefit is the DBT test features. And then again, linking back to the keynote today, the compare model that is going to be coming out in the DBT Fusion, that's going to be game changer for us.
So you talk about the semantic layer.
Semantic layer?
Yeah. That's a feature of the model, right? So we have
I'll let you touch on that one.
Yeah, so depending on how you want to handle it, so Omni has their own semantic layer itself, but they actually have native connection to DBT to ingest DBT's actual metadata. And so we're currently scoping more of that. We learned from our past in Domo that I am not fully entrusting of handing that off just yet. As we get more maturity with our data and we can actually allow our analysts to explore more in the semantic layer, we're trying to keep it more governed with our AE team, so that way all of the context and metadata management is upstream. But they do allow the flexibility for both.
you also mentioned about data governance that you push to Snowflake, and that connects to Omni.
Right, so Omni will ingest the metadata from Snowflake, so we leave all of the logic completely in DBT. We don't do anything in Snowflake from the actual transformation layer, outside of deployment, obviously. And so that allows for the governance to stay with the AE team, and then they will work on the metadata management, utilizing documentation, that documentation functionality in DBT to at least set the foundation for what this data is, and then they'll make tweaks. So once that writes back to Snowflake, Omni's able to pull that in, and then you already have that within the semantic model. So they have this concept of topics, and essentially it's able to set the foundation from Snowflake, what was pushed from DBT.
Any other questions? Yeah.
The Omni model, if user are non-cacher data, how do you get query performance? So the second question is, do you have any hallucination of the AI model? The output data may be wrong, but the user trusts the data.
Yes, so for that one, as he mentioned earlier, we do have our use case for our payment processing platform. So we do have a payments processor where they're actually utilizing that data daily, essentially, and we do have incremental loads that Omni is able to manage. Now, typically within the Omni platform, just personally, we'll limit it to the last 2 years worth of transactions, but it is at the individual transaction level. The one thing that I do like a lot about Omni for their speed aspect, that initial load takes a little bit, but once it's done, it actually has the web browsing cache that you're able to do whatever manipulation on the visuals, and it's very snappy at that point to say, okay, I want to see it like this or like this. It doesn't take long to load. Sorry, what was the second half of your question then? Oh, hallucinations. So there are potential for hallucinations, obviously, with AI. The one thing that was very important for us is making sure you configure the topics properly and add that additional context. So, a lot of the times you'll run into date fields as an example. So for us, we have like 5 different date fields associated to a transaction. You'll have when it was keyed, when it was funded, when the money moved, when it landed, all of these things when it's settled. And so ensuring that you are able to tell the topic, hey, this is the right date you need to use when someone says, hey, I want to know how many transactions we processed yesterday. It could hallucinate if you're not providing that context of, depending on the question, you need to do A, B, and C. Also making sure the definitions live within the topic. So, saying how much volume did we do yesterday? If it's including chargebacks or if it's including declines, your numbers are going to be inflated. So you want to make sure, hey, if someone asks about volume, the definition of volume is A plus B plus C. Those are going to be the most important parts with the AI experience in Omni. Every AI is going to still have that problem. So again, going back to the foundation and getting that right is important.
Context, always key.
Yeah.
So, like, as you already talked about, like, you have the migration of the BI tools, like, multiple times. What makes you sure that, like, you're not going to do this again, you don't, like, and, like, if you go through this, like, what's your plan regarding, like,
I'm going back to Amazon.
No,
If
that's
we have to do
actually
it again, I'm leaving.
No. That's actually a very good question, and I do enjoy that question because it actually says more about Omni than anything else. All your logic does not need to live in Omni. So for us, we chose to have it live in dbt and Snowflake. Not to say we'll ever leave, but they do make it that simple. So everything is essentially upstream. They want to be your preferred analytics partner, because they don't want you to leave because you're having such a good experience. It's not necessarily like every other BI tool. I'll tell you right now, most of them have their own special configuration on how they code. You got like DAX, you have Tableau's interesting way of coding, Redshift for Domo.
runs, yeah.
Like everybody has their own way of doing things. Omni, it's again, meet you where you're at. And you can manage your stuff wherever you want. You have your own repo that you can stand up. Ultimately, it's, hey, it didn't work out. You can repoint to something else. But that's what we actually really enjoyed about Omni is we don't need to leave because they make it that simple to stay, and they are constantly supportive.
just one follow-up on that, like, let's say, like, if you plan to move on from, like, something like that, like, how do you make sure the work that you will for this migration is something that you build up on, not like start from scratch?
Oh, yeah. So if hypothetically we were ever to leave with the way that we stood up our platforms, ultimately DBT's sticking around. I mean, it would just depend on what pieces we had to remove, right? So if we swapped out DBT with something else, then we could repoint it, or Snowflake with something else. We have it segregated in that part because one thing that we did learn from Domo is we had the whole end-to-end solution in one place. The problem there is it's like your car, right? If your car breaks down, you don't need to go buy a new car. Sometimes it's just your transmission, swap out the transmission. Your tire blew out, swap out a tire. And so we took that same approach with the data stack. And so from that perspective, if we were to ever move to something else, it's simply just reconnect that new tool, ingest the same data. And then at that point, there shouldn't be any change to the end user because that's just the end point.
All right, y'all, we're out of time. Austin and I will be in the back if y'all have any further questions. Again, appreciate y'all for coming out. Visit the Omni booth if you haven't already. Thank y'all.
Yeah.